My name's Marcus Thorne. Most days you can find me somewhere in Pittsburgh, covered in drywall dust or smelling faintly of sawdust and sweat. I'm a construction foreman. Been doing it pretty much since high school. It's hard work, long hours wrestling with blueprints that rarely match the reality of old buildings, managing crews of guys who know more curse words than calculus, but it's honest work. That's what pays the bills. Or more accurately, it paid her bills. Ellie's bills. Ellie Rossi. God, just thinking her name used to make my chest tighten a good way. We met 6 years ago, maybe a bit more now. I was doing a side job fixing a leaky roof in the apartment building she lived in back then, and she brought me out a cold lemonade on a scorching July day. We started talking. She was smart, funny, with eyes that seemed to see right through the grime and exhaustion to something else inside me. And she had this dream, this fierce ambition that burned bright even when she was waitressing double shifts to make rent. She wanted to be an architect. Not just any architect, but one who designed beautiful, functional spaces that felt like home. Carnegie Mellon's program was her Mount Everest, prestigious and crushingly expensive. We fell hard and fast. Our future felt inevitable, a solid thing we were building together, just like the houses I worked on. The plan was simple, unspoken at first, then declared out loud one rainy Tuesday night over cheap pizza. I'd work my ass off, cover the bills, keep us afloat while she conquered architecture school. 6 long years, undergrad prerequisites, then the intense master's program. And the day she graduated, the day she walked across that stage with her degree, we'd get married, start our real life, maybe buy a fixer-upper out in the suburbs, one I'd renovate, one she'd redesign. Our shared dream, built on my sweat and her brilliance. Looking back now, I was naive, a romantic fool in steel-toed boots, but back then, it felt right, it felt like us. So, the grind began, 6 years of it. My regular foreman job wasn't enough, not even close, not with CMU's tuition fees, the endless list of expensive supplies, drafting tools, model-making materials that cost more than gold per ounce, plotter paper, specialized software subscriptions. So I picked up extra shifts whenever I could, managing crews on weekend renovation jobs, doing side work, framing basements, building decks, fixing leaky faucets for cash on evenings I should have been sleeping. Sleep became a luxury I rationed like coffee during a price surge. My body paid the price. Some mornings, swinging my legs out of bed felt like lifting concrete blocks. My back constantly ached. My hands, already rough from the construction work, became permanently calloused, ingrained with dirt and the faint scars from slipped wrenches and rogue nails. But every time I handed Ellie cash for her tuition payment, or saw the relief on her face when I covered the rent on her nicer apartment near campus while I stayed in my cheap, drafty place in Millvale across the river, the aches seemed to fade a little. It was fuel. Her dream fueled me. I gave up things. Small things at first. Nights out with the guys, replaced by greasy takeout eaten alone after a 14-hour day. Then bigger things. My prized possession was a vintage Norton Commando motorcycle I'd spent 3 years restoring in my spare time, piece by painstaking piece. It was my escape, the roar of the engine clearing my head after a long week wrestling with concrete and rebar. 2 years into Ellie's program, a surprised tuition hike hit. There was no discussion. I sold the Norton, got less than it was worth, but enough to cover the difference. Watching the buyer ride it away felt like a piece of my own history disappearing down the road. Ellie cried when I told her, said I shouldn't have, but we both knew there was no other way, not if she was going to stay in school. "It's okay, babe," I'd said, holding her tight. "It's just metal. We are what matters. Our future." I missed my cousin Vinny's wedding in Philly because I couldn't afford the gas and time off, especially with Ellie needing new software for a critical studio project. I skipped family reunions, birthdays. I told myself they understood, that our future justified these present sacrifices. Love makes you good at justifying things you'll later regret. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things started to shift between us. The late-night calls from the studio, full of excited chatter about her designs, became shorter, more infrequent, replaced by tired texts, "Swamped. Don't wait up." Study groups seemed to multiply, often including names I didn't recognize. Guys with names like Julian or Sebastian who sounded more like architects in training than the waitstaff and musicians she used to hang out with. Sometimes when she did come home, she'd look at my work boots by the door, or the grease inevitably grounded to the knees of my jeans, with a flicker of something I couldn't quite read. Was it pity? Embarrassment? Once, after she had attended some fancy architecture gala with classmates, she made an offhand comment about how everyone there was so polished. Not like my world, was the unspoken addendum. I brushed it off. Every time. She's stressed, I'd tell myself. It's an intense program. She's in a different world right now, meeting different people. It doesn't mean anything about us. I clung to the promise, to the image of us standing together on the other side of this long tunnel. I trusted her, implicitly, utterly. Because loving Ellie meant trusting Ellie. The alternative was unthinkable. And now, finally, the end of the tunnel was in sight. Graduation day. 6 years compressed into one ceremony, one piece of paper that represented countless hours of her study and my labor. Pride swelled in my chest so fiercely it almost hurt. We did it. Against all odds, we had made it happen. I wanted the day to be perfect for her. I wanted to be there, front and center, cheering louder than anyone. But then an idea sparked. A surprise. Make the start of our real life truly memorable. A few days before graduation, I called her, putting on my best weary foreman voice. "Ellie, babe, bad news," I said, hating the lie even as I spoke it. "We hit a major snag on the Harrisburg site. Underground utilities aren't where the plan said. It's a mess. Looks like I'm going to be stuck out here through the weekend, definitely through your graduation." Her disappointment was audible, a sharp intake of breath followed by a quiet, "Oh, Marcus, number you promised." I know, I said quickly, feeling like a heel. I'm gutted. Seriously. Moved heaven and earth to try and get back, but the site supervisor's breathing down my neck. There's no way. But I'll be there in spirit, cheering you on louder than anyone. And we'll celebrate properly the second I get back, okay? Big fancy dinner wherever you want. She sounded resigned, maybe a little distant. "Okay, Marcus. Yeah, just focus on work. Be safe." The call ended, leaving a sour taste in my mouth, but the plan was set. I immediately arranged the time off with my own understanding boss, cashed in some saved-up vacation hours. I went to the best florist shop downtown and ordered a ridiculously large bouquet of lilies and irises, her favorites. I even found a small, antique silver compass pendant online, something symbolic for the architect about to navigate her future, our future. The morning of graduation, my heart was pounding with anticipation. I felt like a kid on Christmas morning combined with a soldier going into battle. This was it, the culmination, the beginning of everything we'd worked for. I pictured her face when I showed up after the ceremony, flowers in hand, the surprise, the hug, the tears. The start of our life, finally free from the constant grind. We did it, babe, I thought, grabbing the flowers in the small gift box, heading out the door towards the university campus. We really did it. The drive over to Carnegie Mellon's campus felt different than my usual commute across Pittsburgh's bridges. Usually I was fighting traffic, heading to a noisy construction site, my mind already running through crew assignments and material deliveries. Today, the battered cab of my Ford F-150 felt almost festive, cleaned out for once. On the passenger seat sat a ridiculously large bouquet of lilies and irises, their sweet scent battling valiantly against the lingering aroma of coffee and work boots. Tucked beside them was a small, velvet-lined box containing the antique silver compass pendant I'd found online, a nod to her future navigating the world of architecture. Our future. My heart hammered against my ribs with the nervous energy I hadn't felt since, well, maybe since the first time I asked Ellie out 6 years ago. This was bigger, though. This wasn't just a date. It was the finish line. 6 years of grinding, sacrificing, believing. Today was the payoff. Today, our real life began. I'd pictured this moment 1,000 times. Her face flushed with triumph as she emerged from the auditorium, degree in hand. Her eyes scanning the crowd, maybe a flicker of disappointment that I wasn't there as promised. And then, seeing me. Stepping out from the crowd, flowers held high, the compass pendant ready. The gasp, the tears, the hug that would erase every long shift, every missed wedding, every lonely dinner. We did it, babe. I found a parking spot a couple of blocks away, wanting to approach on foot, keep the element of surprise intact. The late May air was warm, carrying the excited buzz of celebration as families and graduates spilled out from the stately stone building where the ceremony had been held. Caps and gowns dotted the lawn, cameras flashed, corks popped somewhere nearby. Laughter echoed. I clutched the flowers, smoothing my maybe permanently borrowed from my cousin, sport coat, feeling ridiculously out of place among the suits and expensive dresses, but my purpose felt clear, my heart full. I scanned the growing crowd near the main entrance, searching for Ellie's dark, vibrant hair, her infectious smile. Where was she? Maybe she went out a side door? I started walking along the edge of the throng, peering through gaps, my anticipation mounting. Then I saw her, near a cluster of oak trees surrounded by a group of people I vaguely recognized as her parents, her younger sister Maria, who always shot me sympathetic glances, and several of her sharply dressed architecture friends, whose names I could never keep straight. Ellie looked radiant, absolutely stunning. The square cap sat jauntily on her dark hair, the black gown couldn't hide the vibrant energy radiating from her. She was laughing, head thrown back in that way that always made my heart clench. Pride surged through me, fierce and overwhelming. There she is! My Ellie, my architect! I instinctively paused behind a large stone pillar bordering the walkway, wanting just a second to watch her, to imprint this image of her triumph before I stepped out and changed everything. Her parents were beaming, her sister looked teary-eyed, proud. They were talking animatedly to a man standing close beside Ellie, almost protectively. He was tall, maybe early 40s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck's engine rebuild last year, his dark hair perfectly styled. He looked polished, confident, academic. I vaguely recognized him from a photo Ellie had once shown me, Professor Adrian Croft, one of her mentors, the one whose advanced design studio she raved about. Nice of him to come congratulate her. I was about to step out, bouquet ready, when Ellie's voice, clear and bright, carried over the general celebratory hum. She had turned slightly, gesturing towards Professor Croft, as she spoke to an older couple I didn't recognize, probably friends of her parents. And I absolutely couldn't have gotten through this last year without him, Ellie was saying, her voice brimming with emotion. She slipped her arm through the professor's, beaming up at him. This is my fiancé, Adrian Croft. We're actually planning a wedding for this fall. The world tilted. The cheerful sounds of the crowd seemed to warp and fade, replaced by a roaring in my ears. Fiancé? Wedding? Adrian? Did I hear that right? It had to be a joke. Some weird academic inside joke I wasn't privy to. My mind scrambled, trying to find another explanation, any explanation, because the one staring me in the face felt like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I risked peeking around the pillar again, my heart pounding sickeningly against my ribs. Number, it wasn't a joke. Ellie was still looking up at Adrian Croft, her expression one of pure adoration. His hand rested possessively on her back. Her parents were smiling at him, nodding along as he spoke. Her sister Maria looked slightly less enthusiastic, maybe even uncomfortable, but she wasn't protesting. Her architecture friends were raising glasses, toasting them, congratulating the happy couple. This wasn't new. This wasn't a joke. This was established, known, accepted by everyone but me. The flowers in my hand suddenly felt impossibly heavy, their sweet scent cloying, nauseating. The small velvet box with the compass pendant burned a hole in my pocket. A surprise? Yeah, I definitely surprised someone today. Myself. Just then, amidst the laughter and congratulations surrounding her, Ellie's gaze flickered outward, scanning the edge of the crowd almost distractedly. For a split second, her eyes seemed to pass right over my hiding spot. Did she see me? I couldn't be sure. There was a momentary tightening around her smile, a barely perceptible unease in her eyes before she immediately turned back towards Adrian, her expression brightening instantly, focusing all her attention on him, laughing at something he said. That fleeting look. It wasn't guilt at being caught. It felt more like confirmation. Confirmation that I wasn't supposed to be there, that my absence was part of her plan for the day. My lie about being stuck in Harrisburg hadn't just enabled my surprise, it had enabled hers. A wave of cold washed over me, followed by a surge of heat that made my vision swim. Shame, pain, blinding, ripping anger. I felt exposed, stupid, utterly betrayed, standing there holding flowers for my future wife who had just announced her engagement to another man. 6 years. 6 years of backbreaking work, of selling my motorcycle, of missing my own life, all for this moment. For her moment. And I wasn't even a footnote. I was erased. I needed to get out. And before I did something I'd regret, before anyone saw me, before the fragile dam holding back the flood of devastation completely broke. I stumbled backwards, away from the pillar, away from the sounds of their celebration. The bouquet slipped from my numb fingers, scattering lilies and irises onto the manicured grass. I didn't stop to pick them up. I turned and walked, fast at first, then almost running, away from the auditorium, away from the crowd, away from the wreckage of the future I thought we were building. I made it back to my truck, fumbling with the keys, my hands shaking violently now. Sliding into the driver's seat, I slammed the door shut, the sound echoing in the sudden, deafening silence of the cab. I stared straight ahead through the windshield, not seeing the campus buildings, not seeing anything but her face, beaming up at him. Fiancé. Wedding. The words hammered in my brain. The surprise wasn't the flowers or the pendant. The surprise was learning that the last 6 years of my life, the foundation upon which I thought I was building everything, was nothing but a lie. A colossal, life-altering lie. And I had walked right into it, smiling, holding flowers. I don't remember much about the drive back from the university campus. It's like my brain just shut down after the shock. One minute I was holding flowers, heart full of plans for our future. The next I was staring through a windshield, the world outside muted and distant, the words fiancé and wedding echoing in the sudden, terrifying silence where my future used to be. I ended up back at my place in Millvale. The small, slightly run-down apartment I'd kept precisely because it was cheap, allowing every spare cent to go towards Ellie's tuition and her much nicer place near campus. The irony was a physical ache in my chest. I walked in, the familiar smell of stale coffee and maybe a hint of engine oil doing nothing to comfort me. I dropped my keys on the counter with a clatter that sounded too loud. The flowers I'd dropped on the campus lawn felt like a phantom weight in my hand. I sank onto the worn couch, the springs groaning in protest. How? When? Adrian Croft. Her professor. Had it been going on for months? Years? Those late nights at the studio, the study groups with names I didn't recognize, her growing impatience with my calls, the subtle shift in her eyes when she looked at my grease-stained work clothes. It all clicked into place now, with sickening clarity. Each memory replayed itself, now filtered through the harsh lens of betrayal. Every excuse she'd made, every reassurance I'd clung to, now looked like deliberate deception. The shock began to recede, replaced by a white-hot rage that started deep in my gut and spread outwards, making my hands tremble again. 6 years. 6 years I'd poured into her dream, believing it was ours. I'd worked until I dropped, sold things that mattered, missed funerals. For this? To be replaced by some smooth-talking professor in a fancy suit? To be dismissed or raised while she celebrated with him? Number, I couldn't just let it lie. I couldn't just crawl into a hole and disappear like she clearly expected me to. I needed answers. I needed to hear it from her, face to face. I needed to understand how the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, could do this. My anger gave me a strange kind of energy. I showered quickly, changing out of the borrowed sport coat. It felt like a costume now. Into my usual jeans and a worn and flannel shirt. I needed to feel like myself for this. I drove back across the bridge towards Oakland, towards her apartment building near the university. The apartment I was still paying half the rent on, I realized with another jolt of fury. Parking down the street, I walked up to her building, my heart pounding a heavy, uneven rhythm against my ribs. Taking the elevator up to her floor felt like ascending towards an execution. I stood outside her door, apartment 4B, for a long moment, gathering myself. Then I knocked, firmly. It took a minute, then the door opened. Ellie stood there dressed now in casual lounge pants and a soft sweater, her hair pulled back. The surprise on her face was immediate, quickly followed by annoyance, then a flicker of something else. Fear? Guilt? "Marcus!" she said, her voice sharp, guarded. "What are you doing here? I thought you were stuck in Harrisburg." "Funny how plans change," I said, my voice rough. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, glancing back into her apartment as if expecting someone else. "Adrian? Was he here?" "It's not really a good time, Marcus," she started. "I'm not leaving, Ellie," I said flatly, meeting her eyes. "Not until we talk." She sighed, a put-upon sound, and reluctantly stepped aside. I walked into the apartment I knew so well, yet which suddenly felt alien. Her architectural models were neatly arranged on shelves, textbooks piled on the desk. It smelled faintly of the expensive perfume I'd bought her for Christmas. There was no sign of Adrian, thankfully. That might have pushed me over the edge. She closed the door behind me, crossing her arms defensively. "Okay, what is it, Marcus?" "I'm really tired. It was a long day." "Oh, I bet it was," I said, sarcasm dripping. "Big celebrations, introducing your fiancé." Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. "You were there?" you said you couldn't make it. Yeah, well, I managed to get away. Wanted to surprise you. My laugh was short, bitter. Guess the surprise was on me, huh? Fiancé, Ellie? A fall wedding? When exactly were you planning on mentioning that minor detail to the guy who's been paying your bills for 6 years? The guy you promised to marry after graduation? She had the grace to flush then, looking away for a moment before her expression hardened again. Look, Marcus, things change. Things change? I echoed, incredulous. Just like that? 6 years down the drain because things change? Who is he, Ellie? That professor? How long has this been going on? Adrian understands me, she said defensively, still not really answering. He understands this world, my ambitions. We connect on a different level. A different level? I stepped closer, lowering my voice, the anger simmering. Does he understand working 16-hour shifts on a construction site in the freezing rain? Does he understand selling something precious, something that meant the world to you, just to pay for someone else's tuition? Does he understand eating ramen for dinner 5 nights a week so you could go out with your study group? My voice cracked on the last words. That was your choice, Marcus, she flared back, finally meeting my eyes, defiance flashing in hers. I never asked you to sacrifice everything. I appreciated the help, okay? But you took it to extremes. You acted like you were buying me. Her words struck me like a physical blow. Buying her? All I'd ever done was love her, support her dream because I thought it was our dream. I did it because I loved you, Ellie, I choked out. Because I believed in us. I thought we were building a life together. Was any of it real? She looked away again, fiddling with the sleeve of her sweater. It was real at first, she mumbled. But people grow apart, Marcus. I grew. You stayed the same. Still working with your hands, still living in that same small world. Adrian, he's part of the world I belong in now. You just wouldn't fit. Wouldn't fit. Too rough, too working class for the sophisticated architect she was becoming, for the polished life professor Adrian Croft represented. All those years I'd felt proud of supporting her ambition. She'd apparently been embarrassed by my reality. So that's it? I asked, feeling a cold numbness spread through me, extinguishing the last embers of hope. 6 years of my life, everything I gave up? It just gets thrown away because I don't fit your new world? I'm sorry it hurts you, Marcus, she said, her voice devoid of any real warmth or remorse. It was the kind of apology you offer a stranger whose coffee you accidentally spilled. But yes, it's over. Adrian and I are building a future together now. It would be best. It would be easier if you just accepted it. Moved on. Moved on, just like that, erased, dismissed. I stared at her, at the beautiful face I had loved so fiercely, and I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. The Ellie I knew. Warm, funny, grateful, the one who'd cried on my shoulder and promised forever, was gone, replaced by this cold, calculating stranger who viewed my sacrifice as an inconvenience, my love as an obligation she was now free from. Okay, I said finally, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. Okay, Ellie, I get it. I turned towards the door, my movements stiff, robotic. There was nothing more to say, nothing left to fight for. Marcus, wait, she called softly as I reached the door. I paused, hand on the knob, but didn't turn around. What? I am grateful, she said, her voice hesitant now, maybe a flicker of actual guilt finally surfacing. For everything you did. I couldn't have finished school without you. I didn't know how to end it. How to tell you. Her gratitude now felt like another insult. Too little, far too late. Yeah, well, I said, pulling the door open. You figured it out. I walked out without looking back, pulling the door shut behind me. Back in the elevator, descending, I felt hollowed out, utterly empty. The anger had burned itself out, leaving behind only the cold, hard reality of the betrayal. She hadn't just left me. She had used me, drained me dry for 6 years, and then discarded me the moment she reached her goal, replacing me with someone she deemed more suitable for her new, elevated status. Sitting in my truck again, parked on the dark street outside her building, the full weight of it crushed me. She felt no remorse. She offered justifications, not apologies. She saw my sacrifice not as love, but as something transactional, something I had chosen to do, implicitly releasing her from any real obligation. The injustice of it burned. The way she had stood on that stage, accepting accolades paid for by my sweat. The way she had introduced Adrian, letting him share our victory. The way she had dismissed me, erased our history because I didn't fit. My sister Maria called as I was driving back over the bridge, her voice tight with worry. "Marcus, where are you? I tried calling earlier. Did you talk to Ellie?" "Yeah," I said, my voice flat. "I talked to her. And it's exactly what it looked like, March. She's marrying the professor. Says I don't fit her world anymore." I recounted the conversation, Ellie's coldness, her justifications. Maria swore softly on the other end of the line. "That bitch, after everything you did? I can't believe her? Are you okay?" "No," I said honestly. "No, I'm not okay. Not even close." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. She thinks she can just throw me away? Erase 6 years like they never happened? Build her shiny new life on my back and just walk away clean? The anger was returning, colder now, sharper. No, she doesn't get to do that. An idea, reckless and fueled by righteous fury, began to form in the back of my mind. She didn't want to acknowledge the truth privately. She wanted to pretend I was just some footnote, easily ignored. Fine. Maybe her new world, the one I supposedly didn't fit into, needed to hear the truth too. Maybe they needed to know exactly what her ambition was built on. "Marcus," Maria said, hearing the shift in my tone, "what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I said slowly, the plan solidifying, "that Ellie's wedding this fall might need one uninvited guest, someone with receipts." The weeks following that final, soul-crushing confrontation in Ellie's apartment were a blur of numb routine. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. The anger simmered beneath the surface, a constant low burn. Maria kept me loosely updated. Ellie and Professor Adrian Croft were moving full speed ahead, planning a fall wedding, acting as if the past 6 years, and my role in them, were irrelevant footnotes. That dismissal, her utter lack of remorse, solidified something hard inside me. She wouldn't acknowledge the truth privately? Fine. Her new world deserved to know what their perfect union was built upon. So, I gathered the proof. Pay stubs, bank transfers, tuition receipts, loan documents, 6 years of my life quantified into a thick manila envelope, totaling just shy of $240,000. It wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my narrative from the ashes of her betrayal. On September 15th, their wedding day, I put on clean jeans and a simple button-down, the envelope heavy in my jacket pocket. I drove my old truck down to Riverside Manor, parked blocks away, and slipped in through a side entrance amidst the bustle of staff. The ballroom glittered, chandeliers, white linens, champagne flutes clinking. Ellie, in a stunning cream dress, stood beside Adrian, the picture of bridal bliss. Her parents beamed nearby. Maria caught my eye across the room, shock flaring in her expression. I gave a slight shake of my head. I waited by the wall, watching them laugh and mingle, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. The toast began, gushing praise for the happy couple. When Adrian finished his speech about destiny and raised his glass, I saw my moment. Before the applause died, before the band could start, I moved. Ignoring the confused murmurs and a questioning look from the best man, I walked straight onto the low dais and took the microphone. A sharp screech of feedback cut through the room, instantly silencing everything. All eyes turned to me. Ellie's face went white as paper. Adrian stiffened, stepping protectively closer to her. "Evening, everyone." My voice came out steady, amplified. "Sorry to interrupt. My name is Marcus Thorne." I paused, letting it sink in, meeting Ellie's terrified gaze. For 6 years, I was the man who loved Ellie Rossi, the man who worked 3 jobs, construction, renovations, driving nights, so she could get her architecture degree. Gas rippled through the crowd. I held up the manila envelope. I kept my promise. This, I tapped the envelope, is the proof. Just under $240,000. Tuition, rent for her apartment near campus while I lived in a dump, software, supplies. I let the number hang there amidst stunned silence. I sold my restored motorcycle, my grandfather's legacy. I missed my own mother's funeral because she had exams that week and I couldn't afford the flight and her expenses. More shocked murmurs. People were staring openly now, phones subtly recording. Ellie looked like she might collapse. Adrian's face was thunderous. I did it because I loved her, I continued, my voice thick with suppressed emotion. Because I thought her success was our success. Only to find out on graduation day, my gaze locked with Ellie's again, that I was being replaced. That I was just a friend who helped out while she introduced Professor Croft here, a curt nod towards Adrian, as her fiancé. The room erupted in hushed, scandalized whispers. No! Unbelievable! How could she? Ellie's parents looked horrified, her mother pressing a hand to her mouth. I didn't come for revenge, I stated clearly. I came because the truth matters. This celebration, her degree, her future, it was built on my back, a foundation she tried to bury. I took the stack of copied documents from the envelope and placed them firmly on the podium. The receipts are here, if anyone doubts the cost. I looked at Ellie one last time, her face tear-streaked, a mask of ruin. Adrian stared straight ahead, rigid with fury and humiliation. I may not be the man beside her tonight, I concluded, my voice ringing with finality, but I'm the reason she is here at all. I just thought you all deserved to know. Then I put the microphone down and stepped off the dais and walked towards the exit. The crowd parted silently, their shocked faces a blur. I didn't look back. I pushed through the doors into the cool night air, the sounds of chaos, raised voices, maybe crying, erupting behind me. I kept walking until I reached my truck. Maria caught up, breathless. Marcus, oh my God, it's insane in there. People are leaving. Ellie... Yeah, I interrupted, getting into the truck, feeling suddenly utterly drained, but also lighter. Had to be done. She stared at me, searching my face. Are you okay? I will be, I said, starting the engine. And for the first time since graduation day, I almost believed it. I had spoken my truth. I had taken back my story. Whatever happened next, I wasn't invisible anymore. The months immediately following that disastrous wedding reception passed in a strange mixture of external noise and internal quiet. My performance, as some online commentators called it, did indeed cause ripples. Maria told me in hushed tones over beers one night that the fallout for Ellie had been significant. The wedding itself dissolved into awkwardness shortly after I left. Many guests departed early, uncomfortable witnesses to the implosion. Whispers apparently followed Ellie through the halls of the hospital where she was doing her residency. Her carefully constructed image had been fractured. Adrian Croft, the fiancé, reportedly distanced himself quickly, his respectable academic reputation and perhaps unable to withstand the messy public scandal. Her parents were devastated, caught between their daughter's actions and the undeniable truth I'd laid bare. I heard all this indirectly, mostly through Maria, who felt obligated to keep me informed, though I never asked for details. Honestly, I didn't take much satisfaction in it. My goal hadn't been to destroy her life, only to reclaim the truth of mine. Her choices and their consequences were hers to navigate now. My focus needed to be elsewhere. And it was. That strange validation that I'd felt from strangers after the story broke, the nods of respect from guys at the shop, the feeling of not being invisible anymore. It sparked something. Instead of just grinding away at jobs that paid the bills, I started thinking about what I actually wanted to build. The idea for Forge started small. It came from seeing kids hanging around the neighborhood near my shop in Millvale, bored, restless, sometimes getting into trouble. They reminded me of myself at that age, full of energy but lacking direction, needing something tangible to put my hands on. I remembered the old community center basement mostly unused. I talked to the director, pitched an idea, a free after-school program teaching basic auto mechanics and maybe some welding or carpentry, practical skills, using donated tools and salvage parts. Give these kids something real to focus on, something useful. To my surprise, the director loved it. Funding was non-existent, but space was available, so I started small. 2 afternoons a week after my construction shift. A handful of skeptical teenagers showed up the first week. We started with basic engine teardowns, oil changes, fixing flat tires on donated bicycles. It was chaotic, messy, frustrating sometimes, but watching a kid's face light up when an engine they'd worked on finally sputtered to life, or seeing the pride they took in perfectly patching a tire, that felt more real, more satisfying than any paycheck I'd ever earned supporting Ellie's dream. Word spread. More kids showed up, Local businesses started donating old tools, scrap metal, even a couple of beat-up cars to practice on. The guys who'd initially offered to back a full repair shop shifted their focus, helping me secure small grants to buy better equipment for the program. Forge wasn't making me rich, far from it, but it was building something else. Purpose, community, a sense of contributing something beyond just earning a living. Maria started volunteering too, handling the paperwork and outreach, her sharp organizational skills invaluable. Life found a new rhythm. My days were still long, construction site foreman, then afternoons at Forge, occasional side jobs to keep my own finances stable, but the exhaustion felt different. It was the satisfying ache of building something tangible, something mine, something that mattered in a way fixing leaky faucets never quite did. I moved out of the depressing Millvale apartment into a slightly larger, brighter two-bedroom rental above a pizza shop, still basic but clean, functional, and entirely funded by my own work. About a year after the wedding reception incident, a letter arrived at my new apartment. The return address was unfamiliar, but the handwriting on the envelope was instantly recognizable. Ellie. My first instinct was to toss it, unopened. What more could possibly be said? But curiosity, or perhaps a need for final closure, made me open it. It was long, rambling, tear-stained in places. An apology. Not just for the graduation, the wedding, the lies, but for the deeper blindness, the entitlement, the way she had taken my sacrifice for granted for so long. She wrote about the professional repercussions she'd faced, the loss of respect, Adrian leaving, the painful self-reflection forced upon her. She didn't make excuses. She didn't ask for forgiveness or a second chance. She simply acknowledged the truth I had revealed and the damage her choices had caused. The last line read, "I know I don't deserve it, but I truly hope you find happiness, Marcus. You earned it more than anyone." I read it through once, then folded it carefully. I felt surprisingly little. No surge of anger, no satisfying vindication, no lingering ache. Just a quiet acknowledgement. It was the letter I might have desperately needed a year ago, but now it felt like an echo from a life already lived, a chapter already closed. Her apology was hers to give. My peace was mine to build, and it no longer depended on her validation or remorse. I put the letter in a drawer and didn't reply. Tonight, standing by the workbench at Forge, the smell of oil and metal comforting and familiar, watching the current group of apprentices argue good-naturedly over diagnosing a faulty starter motor, that peace felt solid, real. Jake, the skinny kid with the chipped tooth from that first cohort, was now my part-time assistant, patiently guiding the newer kids. Maria was in the small office area, wrestling with grant applications. The place hummed with purpose, with the sound of things being fixed, being built. This was my world now. Not the glittering illusion that Ellie had chased, but something grounded, authentic. Built not on borrowed money or broken promises, but on hard work, shared skills, and the simple dignity of creating something useful with your own two hands. Ellie had her life, whatever it now was. I had mine. And for the first time since I'd met her, mine felt entirely, completely, satisfyingly my own. I picked up a wrench, the cool metal familiar in my calloused hand, and headed over to help the apprentices figure out that starter motor. There was work to be done.